Greetings, South Georgia Pig family. Aligning on these packets from right here at South Georgia Pigs, right here in Grow Zone 8B in Tifton, Georgia. And in this morning's video, as with fall upon us and our growth season here in our particular area beginning to reach its end here, we thought we'd bring you guys along for a brief look at the dozen or so fig trees that we have here still left in stock at our 1110 Park Avenue South location here in Tifton, Georgia, and to inform you guys and gals out there currently watching that we still have about 30 fig trees left at our 905 Riley Street location in Albany, Georgia. This first tree here is a Angelica green fig tree here, about 1 year old from last year. This next fig tree here, if I'm not mistaken, is a Verdone strawberry fig tree. This is a fig tree from our rooting 70 fig trees in water propagation experiment that we conducted here several months back. Here we have a Codedama mutante fig tree here, also from our rooting 70 fig trees in water propagation experiment. Here we have a Columbaro fig tree, also from that same experiment. Here we have a 1 year old Basilica melissi fig tree. Currently about 48 inches tall, maybe at this point, in this 3-gallon container, looking fantastic. This next fig tree here is a YOLO, if I'm not mistaken. No, this is a Marco Polo fig tree here in the back here in that container back there. We have a YOLO here in the front in this container. We have a DSJG fig tree here in this container. Now all these fig trees in these smaller containers are again from our rooting 70 fig trees in water propagation experiment here about 100 days or so ago here now. This last fig tree here on this side is a white Texas fig tree, again from our growth season last year. It's currently about a year old here. But the subject of today's video is not about these fig trees or about the 30 fig trees that we have left at our 905 Riley Street location in Albany, Georgia. The subject of this morning's video is the 15 to 20 2-year-old fig tree cuttings that we're going to be attempting to propagate in water. That's right, we have about 20 fig tree cuttings here. As you guys can see, these fig tree cuttings are in terrible shape here. We have some crabbins. We have some Basilica Seeker. We have 2 packages of Basilica melissi fig trees. And again, these fig trees have been in these packages in the crisper drawer in our refrigerator for the past 2 years now. We've already taken the liberty of opening up a couple of packages of these crabbins fig tree cuttings here, and we already trimmed the ends of those cuttings off and placed those in those containers. Here we have 5 containers here that are really containers that we use for a self-wicking system when we root new plants and stuff like that in soil. We just sit them over in these containers, and this little indicator level here tells us how much water we have in our container down in the bottom. At any rate, we already have about 7 of these Cravens fig tree cuttings already prepared, and in these first 2 containers, as you guys can see, I'll pull one out to show you guys what the bottom of that cutting looks like. We just cut it at a 45-degree angle here. You guys can see, proof is in the pudding. These are some old cuttings. Some of these cuttings have begun to like mold and rot in these packages. Again, it's been 2 years since these cuttings were taken and stored in our crisper drawer in our refrigerator. But again, properly stored, fig tree cuttings can stay viable well past the 2-year mark. Now, we proved that to you guys in our rooting 70 fig trees in water propagation experiment here a couple of months back, because those same cuttings came from this same batch of cuttings and they're doing fine out there. So these cuttings are actually over 2 years old here at this point. They're probably about 2 years and 4 months old at this point. And again, we're going to attempt to successfully root and propagate as many of these cuttings as we possibly can here. Again, these first 2 containers we already have. We have 4 cravens cuttings in this container. We have 3 cravens cuttings in this container. We have 1 more package here that I'm opening up at this point. I'm going to remove the viable, or the ones cuttings that I think may be the most viable from this package. I'm going to remove this tissue paper from these cuttings, clean them up as much as possible, and get those ends trimmed off. And we're going to get those in these same first 2 containers here, so we have all of our cravings cuttings in these 2 containers here. So at this point, I'm going to mount my camera to my tripod, and I'll bring you guys back and show you what we got going on here. All right, guys and gals, we're back. Again, these are some rough-looking 2-year-old cravings fig tree cuttings here. We already have about 7 over there in those containers over there. And I highly recommend us, if you're a person who grows and distributes, you know, fig tree cuttings, etc., 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 I highly advise against wrapping your cuttings in tissue paper like this. It's not a very good idea, no matter who you are, how long you've been doing. It's not a very good idea, and here's why. When you wrap your cuttings in tissue paper like this, the tissue paper serves as a dehydrator. They absorb every single bit of moisture they possibly can from your cuttings, through the skin, through the little growth nodes along the tip, the length of your cuttings. And it's not a very good idea. You see, it makes a big mess when you wrap cuttings, such as fig tree cuttings, in tissue paper. It gives the person like me who's attempting to propagate these cuttings a much harder than necessary job of trying to clean these cuttings up to the point where you can safely attempt to propagate them. So my advice to you is, if you do indeed distribute fig tree cuttings, don't wrap these things in tissue paper. It's absolutely not necessary. You can properly wrap fig tree cuttings in saran wrap, like this right here. Place your saran wrap cuttings inside of a package like this, and they'll be just fine, without the whole mess of this tissue paper on being stuck to the cuttings and giving the purchaser a much harder job than necessary when it comes to them attempting to propagate the cuttings. At any rate, we won't waste our time too much in this video. We'll come back later and finish cleaning these cuttings up, and to show you guys how we go about unwrapping these cuttings, preparing the bottom end of the cutting for the propagation process. And we're simply going to cut this cutting just below the lowest growth node at a 45-degree angle. Nothing scientific. Don't have to be a gardener, botanist, or horticulturist or anything like that right there to properly propagate and successfully propagate fig tree cuttings. At any rate, this is our 8th cutting. I'm simply going to drop it over here in this one of these first 2 containers here that contain our cravings fig tree cuttings. And speed this up a little bit if I possibly can. And the one good thing about the distributor of these particular cuttings is they did take a step that was a very useful and helpful step in preparing to ship these cuttings. They actually applied paraffin to the top of the cutting, which seals the cutting off from the cut end. And they also applied that same paraffin to the bottom of the cutting. Now, what that does is seal both ends of the cuttings, and it actually locks in moisture in the cutting. However, again, highly do not recommend wrapping your fig tree cuttings in tissue paper prior to shipping. It's absolutely not necessary, especially when you've already taken the steps of applying paraffin to this end and this end, as you guys can see. So again, we're simply going to cut this cutting at a 45-degree angle near that growth node. Show you guys what that looks like. I'll pop it in one of these containers here. We have 2 more. This one is like very terrible looking, so I'm not even going to attempt to propagate that thing. We have another one here. I'm going to get it unwrapped and see what it looks like. It's not in that bad a shape. We'll get it in one of these containers as well. Below that last growth node. This cutting does not look so well on the interior, but we're going to go ahead and attempt to propagate this cutting as well. I'm going to pop it in one of these cuttings over here. We'll go ahead and move on swiftly to our next group of cuttings, which happens to be our Basilica Sica fig tree cuttings, as you guys can see here. This package opened up. See exactly how good or not good these fig tree cuttings look after 2 years of storage in the crisper drawer in our refrigerator. Again, these are the Basilica Sica variety of fig tree cuttings here. I'm going to get up here next to this lowest growth node, make a 45-degree cut. You guys can see that thing is pretty and green after about 2 years of storage in our refrigerator. This third cup here we'll use for our Basilica Sica fig tree cuttings. We have our Krabby's Cravings fig tree cuttings in those first two containers over there. Moving swiftly on to this next cutting. You guys can see this thing's beginning to wither up a bit from dehydration. I'm going to make a cut here along that lowest growth node and see what it looks like. This thing is brown. That white layer that should be white right in there surrounding this is all brown, so this thing is probably completely dehydrated. Move up one more growth node, same scenario. That's definitely not a viable cutting. Moving on to the next one. We only had 3 of the Basilica Sica cuttings in this container. This one looks fantastic. So we have a total of 2 of the Basilica Sica cuttings in this third container here. Moving on to the Basilica melissi cuttings. We have 3 of those in this first container. Not all of these cuttings came from the same distributor. We have several distributors out in California that we purchase fig tree cuttings from when necessary. So both the storage methods of all of these distributors varies from distributor to distributor. This is the not so fun part of propagating fig tree cuttings that you purchase online somewhere. Actual unpackaging part, because most distributors take care in how they prepare their cuttings for shipping. Alright, our very first Basilica melissi fig tree cutting. We're going to get along that first growth node at the bottom down there and see how viable or not viable this cutting is. Excellent, pretty, green. Our very first Basilica melissi fig tree cutting. Moving on to the next one swiftly. Cutting is already looking pretty good. I'm predicting a healthy and viable cutting in this cutting as well. Right, along that very first growth node at the bottom. You can already see green beneath that skin, so we know that this is a viable cutting already. 45-degree angle. Not so good right there. We're going to go up a little bit further. Absolutely not. Maybe this is not such a viable cutting after all. No bueno. On to the third cutting. Again, these cuttings have been in our crisper drawer and our refrigerator for the past 2 years. So as expected, some of these cuttings are viable and some of them are obviously not at this point. This cutting I'm thinking is not going to be viable. Might just prove me wrong. Not so good, but not so bad either. We want to tap that cutting. We got one Basilica melissi out of that very first set of Basilica melissi fig tree cuttings. Moving swiftly on to the last 3 cuttings in this grow experiment. This video is getting a little long on the tooth. So at this point, I'm going to get these last 3 cuttings and get them unwrapped and see how viable or not viable these cuttings are. These are some larger cuttings, the largest cuttings from amongst all of the cuttings that we're in the process of attempting to propagate here. Again, at South Georgia Figs. I like the way the distributor took the liberty of sealing that large cut there to help hold moisture inside of the cutting. A very bright idea in my opinion. As you guys can see, this is a thick cutting here. I'm predicting that it's going to be still viable. Who knows? See if we can get a 45-degree cut going on there. That looks pretty good, you know what I mean? Also do a 45-degree cut here if possible. That also looks pretty good. Get that one in there. We have one more cutting left here. Doing our rooting 2-year-old fig tree cuttings propagation experiment. This cutting looks terrible. You guys see that? The skin is already peeling off this cutting. I'm predicting that this cutting will not be viable. May be wrong, but I'm not very optimistic about this particular cutting at all. See what we get. Oh, actually, we have some nice, pretty green inner layers here on this portion of the cutting. Be quiet, Eric. Maybe, just maybe, this is indeed a viable cutting. We're going to find out. All right. We're going to make a 45-degree angle cut at the bottom of this cutting. This end that we just trimmed being the top. That looks pretty good down in there. Give it a quick scratch right there for good luck. And all right. We have one final cutting to go here. And I'm hoping that this cutting looks just as good as the last larger cutting amongst our Basilica melissi fig tree cuttings here. Again, these are some 2-year-old cuttings. We're actually 2 years and about 4 months old cuttings here, and we're going to see if we can actually make some magic happen with these cuttings and get some of these old cuttings to actually root for us here. And if we do, we're going to have a giveaway. We're going to give away one of each of these fig tree varieties if indeed we are successful in getting at least 2 of each variety to propagate for us here at South Georgia Figs. sorry about that. Camera managed to slip from my trusty chest mount here. I don't know how that happened. Got you guys back in the frame for this last cutting. Removing the last bit of saran wrap from these cuttings. And getting here along that lowest growth node, which is actually that one. They cut this really close to that lowest growth node right there. So we're gonna go up to this growth node right here on this cutting. See if we can get a 45-degree angle type thing going on here. It's not the best looking layer on the inside, but it's still a viable cutting. And we'll get it in the water also with the other 3 Basilica melissi fig tree cuttings that we're going to be taking to propagate during this propagation experiment here. All right. So as a recap, we have a total of, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of our Craven's fig tree cuttings you guys can see here. We have a total of 2 of our Basilica, of our, what do we have here? Craven, Basilica Sica, and Basilica melissi. So we have 2 of these Basilica Sicas here. We have a total of 4 Basilica melissis here. It's day 1, October 27th, 2022. And we'll bring you guys back at the very, very, very first sign of propagation amongst any of these cuttings here at South Georgia Figs here in Grow Zone 8B in Temple, Georgia. Thanks for watching. And if you currently do find yourself watching this video and not already subscribed to South Georgia Figs, please take a moment to press the subscribe button beneath this video, the like button, the notification button, and be sure, South Georgia Fig family, be sure to share this video with your friends and family as well. Thanks for watching.